the time to be able to come together, Lord, to worship you, Lord, and just to seek your face, Lord, and to hear your words, Lord, that ask of where are we today, Lord, that you are willing to come and find us so that we might have life. Lord, speak to us this morning as we look at your word. In Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Very enthusiastic amen. It's good. Great. Judy started off my sermon for me, taking us to John chapter 14. So let's turn there. That's where we are this morning. So hopefully we should see some integration of thought. And I'm going to look at the sixth I am statement of Jesus that it's probably one we're very familiar with. It might be the one that we're kind of more familiar with in some ways, that Jesus says, I am the way and the truth and the life. And this comes in John chapter 14. And it is a story of a journey. It is a story of a destination that we've just heard there that Bob read out about if we're to follow Jesus, if we're to love him, then we will find our home with him, that he will come and live within us. But the journey here is the human journey. It's the journey of life. It's a journey of life and death. And Jesus speaks into our human story, our daily life, what is ahead of us, what is to come. And I'm going to read from John chapter 14, verse 1, just to put us in the context of the passage. And Jesus says, do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God. Trust also in me. In my Father's house there are many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you. I'm going there to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place where I'm going. And Thomas, the future apostle, at this point, the disciple of Jesus, steps in and asks a question. Thomas said to him, Lord, we don't know where you're going. So how can we know the way? That's quite a big question, isn't it? Lord, I don't know what's going on. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to live my life. The confusion that's present in a disciple that is willing to simply ask the question to Jesus that they don't know. Don't give Thomas too much of a hard time. We know that from the history of the church that Thomas, who asks the questions, who not knowing things, who doubting at different points, goes on to serve Christ in mission across the world. Okay? And as we think, maybe gave his life for Jesus. And Thomas asked the question, Lord, we don't know where you're going. Jesus, in his heart, at this point in time, the focus of Jesus was entirely upon the direction of travel to the cross. Okay? That's where he was going. They didn't quite grasp it. They didn't quite understand it at this time. But that's where Jesus was traveling, the cross. What's at the cross? Suffering. Death. Lord, we don't know where you're going, so how can we know the way? In these moments of doubt, in these moments of questions, even as they looked upon Jesus on the cross, they must have thought, Lord, we thought you were preparing a place for us in heaven. We thought you were going to come again and take us to be with you for eternity and give us life everlasting. But here you are, dying on a cross. Hear the voice of hope from Jesus. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Do not trust in God. Trust also in me. Jesus puts his words alongside the Father in heaven. Trust in God. Trust in me as well. You can take my word 100% to the bank. Okay? You can trust in Jesus. In my Father's house are many, many rooms, many places, many mansions, as it were, that are prepared for us for eternity in the heart of God. We have a home in God when we are willing to trust in him and follow him. Thomas, not knowing that all that Jesus had, or all that Jesus had in mind, he's not getting it, okay? As human beings, when we look at what Jesus does, when we look at the direction of the way of Jesus to the cross, sometimes we just don't understand it, okay? You might say, I believe in Jesus, I believe he died for me on the cross, I believe this, I believe that, and you tick all the boxes of doctrine. You go, I believe that, but are you following it? Are you walking in the way of the cross? Are you walking in the way of the life of Jesus? It's quite a different thing. Jesus, in his answer, as it were, if we fully grasp these simple words that Jesus says, they should change our entire thinking, our mind, our life. Jesus says, I am the way. He says, you don't know what to do. You don't know where to go. You don't know what your life's about. Jesus says, I am the way. The way of Jesus is everything that will shape your life and transform your life from one thing to another. It's resurrection in life form. It's transformation of your hopes and dreams. It has the ability to take you from a place of suffering and enable you to live a life of joy. Jesus says, I am the way. Why is he the way? Some people say that he says he is the way because he is the truth and he is the life. In him as a person, the very way itself, the way of salvation is Jesus. Now don't in your mind as you're following Jesus just say, well, I'm saved, that's it. Don't leave it as a moment of salvation. That would be foolish. This is a way of life. This is a way of transformation. We cannot have a Christianity that is just a moment of salvation without a life that is transformed. It does not make sense. It does not show us what the cross is about. It doesn't show us what resurrection is about. Because Jesus is preparing something so much greater for us that he can bring to us with his life and his power. Jesus, in saying that I am the way, the truth, and the life, no one comes to the Father except through me. We cannot know God. There is no way, no one else in history, no one else in this world that can bring you into the life of God. Only Jesus. Jesus is the very divine, active, and dynamic life of God in a person that's willing to love and die for us. This is important because it's not just a theory. It is a person. It's Jesus, living, real, human man that came and died for us. As we deal, Jesus deals with the question of Thomas. Do you want to move on to the next slide, Shirley? As Jesus deals with the question of Thomas, we see that there is a reality of the truth of God in the very incarnation of Jesus. If we want to know what is the way of life, if we want to know how should I be living, what should I be doing, we have to look at Jesus. It sounds almost too simplistic, but have you ever really looked at Jesus and followed him? Have you ever looked at the heart of the holiness of God and thought, am I living like Jesus? Or are we satisfied with our secular ways? Are we willing to follow a Christ of love, of hope, of life? a faith that is a holy and living God who walks in the way of the cross in hope of the power of resurrection. Christianity, as Jesus shows us here, shows us the reality of the story of life. Jesus shows us what life is about. It shows us the reality in Him, embodied in Him, embodied in His story, embodied in the reality of humanity needing a Savior. He brings us to a place of showing us that His life is about the future hope. Okay, our lives now depend upon us living for Jesus, living with a hope of eternity, living with a hope that is beyond the grave. The final reality of our own story, where does it end? Jesus says, do not let your heart be troubled. This is great hope because He is going ahead of us, our forerunner, the one who goes through death for us. How could He go through death if He is not the very essence of life itself? John's Gospel tells us that Jesus has life within Him. These are just a few things that John tells us. That He is also He doesn't just have essential life within Him, He is the life giver. Okay? He is the one that can call Lazarus out of the grave. Okay? He is also the light of life. In Jesus, we have the words of life. Okay? And in Jesus, as we follow Jesus, the Good Shepherd, He's the one that is seeking us and directing us, like as the Good Shepherd, in the way of abundance of life. This is what Jesus is about. But it's in Him. It's in Him as a person. And we must learn to come to Him and to follow Him, to learn the reality of who we are in Christ so that we have hope for eternity. We have hope past the grave. If we don't know, if we have moments of unknowingness like Thomas where we just don't understand it. We don't know where you're going, Jesus. I thought you were going to come as and bring radical change to the political system. Jesus is coming to go to the cross to save us from sin, to prepare a place in heaven that is our eternal destiny, the ultimate reality of the story of humanity in Christ. Broaden your thinking. The life of Jesus isn't just about your little world that you're living in. This is about your eternal destiny. This is about everything about your life. You say, I don't know what to do in this part of my life. Come humbly to Christ. Learn of the story of reality that God has presented to us in God's Word. If you don't know what to do in your life, well, I suggest you go back to God. Trust in God and also trust in me, Jesus says. If you don't know what to do, what has God already said? What has He already declared to us? We have great hope. I'm going to move on to the last slide. Here we find Jesus showing us that our faith has a destination, okay? It's part of a journey of life. That there isn't just, our Christianity isn't just about you conforming right now in this very moment. It is about a life-giving abundance of all of your life that culminates beyond death. The resurrection hope in Jesus, that when Jesus is able to say, I am going and I'm going to come back, the power of the hope of Christ, the resurrection power, that He will come back so that we can know Him in His fullness, that He can prepare a place for us, gives us hope. It gives us faith. Thomas, at the end of John's Gospel, in chapter 20, when presented with Jesus himself in the risen form in front of him, after doubting, after not believing what others have said, even though others had seen Jesus, Thomas, confronted with the reality of who Jesus is now. We have to remember that as Christians now, Jesus is not the Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus now is Jesus the risen Lord, seated on the right hand of the throne of heaven. Figure out which Jesus you're following. Because if you're still just trying to follow the Jesus walking around, as it were, in Nazareth, and you, in your heart and mind, you have not understood yet that Jesus is risen, that Jesus is seated upon the throne, then you're going to live your life quite differently. You're just going to treat him as if he's some teacher, some rabbi, and you can just follow some of the teachings, and it doesn't really matter which bits you pick and choose, and I'll take the bits that I like about Jesus. No, this is not just some secondary teacher of scriptures. This is Jesus, the risen Lord. Jesus, the Almighty God. Jesus seated upon the throne. Jesus that rose from the dead, not because of anyone else's power, but because of the very life-sustaining power within him. Life itself. When Jesus says, life, I am the way, the truth, and the life that he speaks about is not just a spiritual life, it is life as in opposition to death. Okay? Don't make it so over-spiritual that you forget the fact that God is the life-giving God. Don't say, well, it's just a spiritual life that he's given me. No. This is life as opposed to death itself. Yes, he'll give you spiritual life, but yes, he will give you life. He is the giver of life. This is powerful stuff because it's hope now, but hope for eternity. It's the way, the only way that we have to follow. Jesus doesn't give you options. Okay, he's not saying which do you want to follow? You can follow this or follow that, A, B, C, D, E. No, it's just follow me. I am the way. Personified in him, reality. Okay? What is the world seeking for? Reality. Okay? So many areas of our lives and society are fantasies. They are false representations of our identities. But Jesus presents us with the reality in him of our humanity and says, follow me. Okay? Taking away the misrepresentations, taking away the fantasies of our other ideals that we wished for. But in reality, Jesus has just come to me, have hope in me. He comes to Thomas, peace be with you. In chapter 20, and Thomas said, put your finger here. He said to Thomas, put your finger here, see my hand, reach out your hand and put it in my side. Stop doubting and believe. When you're confronted with the reality of the risen Lord, stop doubting and believe. When you see that Jesus is risen from the dead, when you see that his wounds are for you, that his purpose of the cross is to save you, is to heal you. Yes, we might suffer now, but the way of life is eternal. It's life as opposed to death. He's going to bring you to life for eternity. This is the hope of Christianity. Paul says, without the hope of resurrection, just forget it. Go home. This is pointless. We are conning ourselves if we do not believe in the resurrection of Jesus. This is the great hope. Maybe you like Thomas, you feel like you need to see something more of Jesus. Well, go to him. Find out about his way. Look at him. Look at what he's done for you. Look at the fact that he was flesh and blood. Look at the stories of the testimonies of the reality of the life of Jesus in the Gospels. Look at what he has done since. Look at the history of the resurrection throughout time and place. The testimonies of thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon millions of Christians that have encountered the risen Lord and believe and live. How much testimony do you need to hear to stop doubting and to believe? This is the gospel, so that we might believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. This is the paradox of the road much traveled. We all travel the road of humanity. We all travel the road of death. But are we going to live a life that is worth living for Christ, so that we can come to Christ, come to him in all that he has to offer, an understanding of truth, of reality, of who you are? Don't treat the gospel as if it's some little thing. It's not. It's the totality of your life. We have a Christ who is risen and is Lord. I'm going to turn to Acts chapter 4, verse 12 to finish. We've got great hope in Christ, that through him, he says, that no one comes to the Father except through me. Our hope of God, of knowing God, is only through Jesus. We can know him now, and we can know him for eternity. In Acts chapter 4, verse 12, it says, salvation is found in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven given to men, given to humanity, by which we must be saved. Look, go in the way of Christ. Follow him. This is where life and salvation is. This is where we can start if we're willing. And sometimes we're not willing to face the reality of our humanity, as it were, confronted with God, because it's a bit scary. It means it means you have to bow the knee because he's risen. You have to, like Thomas, when confronted with the reality of Jesus, say, my Lord and my God. If Jesus isn't your God, he needs to be. Let's pray. Lord, help us with our unbelief. Help us to believe where we have not believed. Help us to find faith that to follow Jesus is the all-encompassing life that he offers. Help us to bow the knee, Lord, that under heaven there is no other name. Glory to your name, Jesus. Help us to confess that you are Lord and God. You're not just a Savior. You're not just someone to follow. You're not just a speaker of convenient truths to us, but you are the Lord of heaven and earth. Lord Jesus, move us on in the way of Christ. Amen.